Set Phasers, a highly illogical Star Trek podcast.
Hello, Archie.
Oh, hello, Steph.
Oh, hello. You almost look like you weren't expecting me. You're just so casual.
No, it's just another humdrum day here in the Mirror Universe. Where the Terrans are tearing themselves apart. See what I did there? And, you know, it's just so rough. I miss the Federation.
Yeah.
I miss home. I miss wearing bow ties and saluting and the Prime Directive.
We're almost matching tonight.
I know. This is.
Blues.
I feel so casual. Yeah. I feel so casual. Anyway,
I've never seen you so casual except during this Mirror Universe.
Well, it's a real drain on me. Welcome to our podcast about Star Trek Discovery.
Welcome. And we are near the end of season 1. This is the ramp up towards the season finale.
Striking distance. And let's see. Well, today's stardate is stardate 10904.8. And we are still in the Mirror Universe. And things are getting, they're getting very, very, very complicated. And we will do our best to parse all these different elements out from each other and in towards each other as we make sense of these 2 penultimate episodes of Star Trek Discovery, I think. Unless there are any further questions.
Should we run it down?
I think it's time. It's time to run it down. Can you run it down for me? What just happened? Can you run it down for me?
So, Aki, can you run it down for me?
I'm going to do my best. Okay. As you all may recall, last time on Set Phasers, we discussed episodes 11 and 12, in which, the ship went into the Mirror Universe, and they were surrounded by Klingon wreckage, and they had this whole thing, and there's a Terran Emperor, and we don't know who that is, but then we find out it's Georgiou, and we find out that Michael was like a daughter to her, and then Lorca is supposed to be a prisoner there, but they use their Lorca as bait so they can get to the ship, so they can find out how to get home. But then in the end of the season 12, we find out that the Lorca that we loved all along is really evil Lorca. He's Lorca from the Terran universe, and he's back. So that's like the recap. That's what's going on in the Mirror Universe right now. It's why I'm wearing a short sleeve shirt with no bow tie. And so we start this. You can tell from the show that this is intense because there's no cold open. There's no like right? It's just boom. We're into it. It's Lorca. He's in like another chamber of torture, and he's releasing people who are saluting him. So we see like his former compatriots in his attempt to stage a coup on Emperor Georgiou, and he's saying it's been 1 year and 212 days of torture, but now you are free and our time has come. And then he opens one particular agonizer chamber, and who should we see lying there but Commander Landry? Yes. The commander, you know what? I felt like this Commander Landry was more level-headed than the other Commander Landry, at least, right?
Maybe.
I felt like the other Commander Landry is the one who like tried to open the thing and shoot the gun. Like she was like a Federation person trying to be a Terran. This Terran is like a little bit more like, all right, let's. In fact, the first thing Landry says is, "We need to retreat. We need to regroup." And then Lorca says, "You think I traveled from a different universe to get here? You think I don't have a plan?" And so the first thing they do is they go to the lab, and it's like the version of Stamets's lab. This is for T-Stam, as I call him, Terran Stamets. And they go in there, and it's empty, and they're like, damn, he must have left in a hurry. And they think he's hiding, and then Lorca looks in the corner, and he sees something weird, and he like reaches into an empty space, and he pulls out a cowering T-Stam, and he's like, "You coward." And Stamets is like, "What are you doing alive? We thought you died." And he explains that as he was he was trying to do the coup that was failing, and then as he tried to flee on the Buran, he was shot with torpedoes, and as he was trying to transport her out of the ship to save himself, there was an ion storm which caused him to go to what I'm calling the prime universe, just in terms of our perspective. And so he switched places with his other Lorca, and he went to the prime universe, and then he spent the last year and 212 days essentially trying to get back and restage this coup. And so he needs
a long time.
It's a long time. It's a very driven.
It's a long time faking it.
Driven man. Well, it was starting to come apart at the seams in these last few episodes, and I think that's sort of why he sort of upped his timetable. It seemed like he was going at a more steady pace, and maybe he wanted to bring more of the Discovery's crew over to his side. But once Admiral Cornwell, yeah.
You're really struggling with that.
I just want to call her Caldwell just every time. It's like, we are not going to get into it, but it's like
Caldwell.
Caldwell, but it's not Caldwell. Don't confuse me.
You always said Cornwall.
Cornwall too. Okay,
Cornwall,
let's not say
Caldwell.
the things that I'm going to call it by accident. So Lorca explains, and he's like, we're about to take this ship, and we're going to take the throne. And they enlist in Stamets' help, and they use some sort of like poison gas to you just see a bunch of other Terran soldiers just kind of like foaming at the mouth and in convulsions on the floor. In the meantime, in the throne room, Georgiou is with her people, and she's like, he's here, and they're getting reports of like people dying and attacks, and she's like, we just need to find out exactly where he is, and then we're going to take the fight to him. And Michael is, our Michael, Prime Michael, is saying to Emperor Georgiou, like, you gotta let me call Discovery and tell them not to come, because we don't want to get in the middle of this weird, awful fascist civil war issue. And she's like, you think I would let you do that, but I'm not going to. And Michael's like, he's taunting you. He wants to lure you into his trap. He's expecting this. And the Emperor's like, sure, maybe you know what you're talking about, but put her in the brig. And so they try to arrest her, and Michael escapes because she's badass. And so she does some Vulcan martial arts, and she slips through a hole in the wall into what I think in the mirror universe would still be called Jeffrey's tubes, but I'm not sure. Maybe they're called something more sinister. Who knows? I wrote Jeffrey's tubes. On Disco, they are trying to figure out, they're on their way to the rendezvous, and Stamets has come back into himself, and he's trying to figure out why the mycelium crop is still dead and dying. And that's when Arium, who's sort of a big character we don't see a lot, she's like the android-esque alien. We don't really get an understanding of whether...
We get a season 2 episode that's all about her, don't we?
We get, yes, and maybe it's a short trek, or am I thinking of a season 2 thing?
I think it's a season 2 thing.
Okay.
I feel like it was a longer episode.
Spoiler
Maybe I'm
alert.
getting it wrong.
Yeah, who knows?
Sorry.
It's all good. You're about to hit it.
Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert.
Because at this point, we don't even know if there'll be a season 2, because things are unraveling so ridiculously. It's insane. Anyway, Arium is, she's doing scans of and I looked this up. They're pronouncing the ship Karen, not Charon, and not Sharon, which I would say. But it's fine.
Slightly better.
Last
It's still
episode, I
someone
said-
you would know down the pub.
Well, and also he ferries you across the river Styx, whatever you need to do. And also, as we discussed, Pluto's moon. So Arium has been doing scans on the Karen, and she finds out that weird sun thing that's at the bottom of that huge ship is actually some sort of reactor that's feeding off the mycelial network. They're drawing a huge amount of power out of this network that's sort of connected to all universes and all times and stuff. And that's sort of what is poisoning the mycelial network. And it's the work of T-Stam, his weird work here in the Terran Empire, that has led to this poisoning of the network. And I think this is when they'd discover that, yes, if that reactor and T-Stam's work is allowed to continue, it will destroy the entire mycelial network, meaning A, Discovery will be stranded there. B, the entire mycelial network will be destroyed. And C, the universe as we know it will be the universe, nay, the multiverse, the universe as we know them, will be
Life.
altered irrevocably. Life, matter, the universe, everything. 42. So they have to figure out a way to destroy this thing. Not only do they have to get back home to the prime. God, I missed the prime universe. Not only do they have to get back home to the prime universe, they also have to destroy this thing in order to get back and in order to preserve life across the multiverses. The burden of the Discovery team is immense. Meanwhile, Lorca on the Karen is using the ship's-wide comm to taunt the Emperor. He's basically like, oh yeah, well, even my Michael knew that you couldn't hold on to power any longer, but I shouldn't be sharing pillow talk because we were totally doing it or whatever. And he says to everyone, like, we're about to take this ship and we're about to take over the Empire, but my only order is no one touches Michael. Okay, she's not to be harmed. And then the Empress is using this, and she finds out exactly where he's transmitting from, and she's like, leads her troops, and she's like, we're going to take the fight to him. And so she gets a gun, which is, I have to say, it's pretty cool when she's holding the laser in her metal jump suit breastplate thing. No?
Yeah.
No one else likes it?
No, totally cool.
I like the sword better, but it was cool when she was like, let's do this. And so she just grabs a laser field thing. So she enters a room. There's a confrontation between the Emperor and Lorca. At first, no one's there. And then oh no, I forgot her name. The mirror version of the lieutenant who goes down she's got the braids and the like asymmetrical cut. Oh, I should have written it down, but I didn't. Yeah.
Owetson?
Something like that. We should have a sound effect for when I do a total fail. Yeah,
we could Google it.
If you want to know, you can Google that.
Never has not knowing a thing been so funky. I guess the crew of
Bridge Crew, Star Trek Discovery Bridge Crew.
Yeah, you got it.
Oyen Oladejo.
Yes.
Oladejo. Is that right?
Oladejo, I think, is how they pronounce it on the show. But, who knows? I'll correct myself next week. Anyway.
Oh, wait, no, sorry. She's the actress. Lieutenant Owasekun.
Yes.
Owasekun.
Yes.
Yes, I was half right.
Yeah, you had the actor's name right, which is very impressive.
No, I read that. But the I was half right.
Still giving you props for Googling it.
Thank
anyway,
you.
Her Terran version was the one who was supposed to send the initial shock troops down to find Lorca. She's still alive, and the Emperor's like, why are you still alive? And she's like, because Lorca wanted you to know that he was here. And then she's disintegrated, and then a bunch of like, they have these like crazy phasers in Terran world that like the front heats up when they're ready to phase you and stuff. I don't think we've seen that. That's like a Terran thing, right? That's not like anyway.
Yeah,
so in the darkness, all these phaser muzzles light up as they're getting ready to fire. And then Lorca steps out and goes, ha, 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 ha. What's up? I'm here. I'm bad and I'm back. Yeah. And then he's like, it's too bad I got to kill you. And pew, 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 and they all open fire. But then the Emperor is protected by some sort of like, yes, that's right, force field. And then while that's happening, she does something on her wrist. She has like some kind of control thing on her wrist, and she's able to like cause these like automatic drone things to fire on Lorca's crew. But then Lorca's crew jumps out of the way, and then they jump back in, and then they're overloading the shield. And evil Stamets, T-Stam is keeping track, and he's like, the shield's about to be overloaded. And then when it drops, he's like, go, 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 go. And they fire, and they start shooting at everyone. And then basically all of the Emperor's team gets killed by Lorca's people. And then she hits her wrist thing again, and she does an emergency transport and disappears. At the same time, Michael is hiding in the, what we'll call for now, Jeffries tubes, but are, I don't know, evil Jeffries tubes. And she is like got hacked into the comms relay so that she can contact Discovery. And she gets in touch with Saru, and she explains the situation. She's like, Lorca's not a good guy. He's the bad guy. He's from here. You guys got to get out of here. I screwed up. And then he's like, oh, there's nowhere we're going to leave you. And then they're like, they explain the mycelial network is jacked up. And so then they're like, look, we got to do this to save all life everywhere, every time. basically. And then Michael says, okay, tell me what I have to do. And they're like, we need you to drop the shield that's on the mycelial reactor. And she's like, okay, I'll do it. Let me know. I'll let you know when I'm in position. And then you guys figure out how you're going to fire on that bad boy. And this is where I wrote down that they said Karen. Anyway, it seems like Michael is going to have to sacrifice herself. It seems like Michael is going to have to sacrifice herself in order to, yes. It seems like Michael's going to have to sacrifice herself in order to, she's going to have to sacrifice herself in order to save the multiverse. In any case, Lorca, in the meantime, no one knows where the Emperor's gone, and Lorca's kind of upset that she disappeared and that Stamets didn't know that she could do that. Lorca gets to the throne room, and once they get there, he sets up on the platform, and they summarily kill T-Stam. T-Stam, you're dead. And they in doing so, they macabrely show that there's like a trap door in the throne room that goes down to the reactor. I guess you can just dump things down there. It's like a weird, like, yeah.
It's so like evil universe, like, because even the phasers that sort of came out from the wall, I was like, it's so Indiana Jones.
Yeah, it was
and
like,
then the trap door was super Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
Like, like to, almost sort of going down to, fire and flames and stuff or whatever underneath you. It was just
totally.
It was
like well, it seemed, and almost like it was like almost like a gag, because someone could be like there talking to the Emperor, and then Georgiou could be like, nah, and hit like a buzzer, and they would just fall, into the reactor and die, which is absolutely absurd. Anyway,
there was a British TV show. Did you ever watch Armstrong and Miller?
Oh, yes, indeed.
Yes.
Yeah.
Kill him.
Yes.
And then, falls into the trapdoor or whatever.
Which is, anyway, it was not done for laughs, but it did make me chuckle because it was so sort of macabre and over the top. And then they didn't kick Stamets into it. They just shot him. They were like, whatever, who cares for the drama? And then once they're there, it is Lorca realizes that Michael is still out and about. And so Michael so Lorca once again uses the shipwide systems to contact Michael. And he's talking to her and he's telling her that, like, listen, your Federation is doomed to fail. You should stay here with me. We can rule together. He makes an impassioned and eloquent plea, which I did write down and may use in tonight's quotable moments. But not only is he trying to convince her, at the same time, he's sent his commander Landry after her. So it's sort of a distraction so they can hunt Michael down. And Landry thinks that she's going to get her, but when they get there, they find out that Michael had like done some kind of clever thing so that it seemed like she was in a place where she wasn't, and she's still on the move. Oh yeah. Michael Burnham is not to be messed with. And while they're doing that, Michael goes to the sanctuary of the ship, and she finds Georgiou, who's I won't say hiding, because she is the Emperor, but she seems like she's like licking her wounds. Basically, seems to be contemplating all the mistakes she's made in her life. She's looking at the imperial badge of her Michael Burnham, and Michael comes in, and Georgiou's like, "How did you know I'd be here?" And she's like, "This is your sanctuary, and I know you." And then they discuss whether or not they know each other, and then Michael's sort of trying to convince Georgiou to help get this discovery thing off. And Georgiou seems uninterested, but then when Michael mentions that it's going to involve like some risky business, something like a cool, crazy attempt and like a big, what do you call it? One of those things like a blaze of glory. Georgiou is like, I'm interested. Tell me more.
It seemed like a moment where Burnham says to Philippa, I've got to do this thing and I need you in on it. And it's like a building of trust moment between the two of them.
Well, because Michael says, I have to get that containment field down. And Georgiou says, those controls are in the throne room. How are you going to do that? And Michael says, I'm going to give him exactly what he wants. And Georgiou's like, ooh, this sounds like fun. Meanwhile, on Disco, they're discovering that the photon torpedoes are not going to destroy this mycelial sun reactor thing. They are not strong enough. So they need to like modify the torpedoes with mycelial spores. And how much mycelial spores? You guessed it, all of them. So once they do this, they will definitely have absolutely, if they save the network, they won't have any spores enough to run the spore drive to get back home. So they will be saving the network, but then stranding themselves in the Terran Empire. It is a bitter moment, but it's what they have to do. And then Saru gives a rousing speech, pretty rousing speech. I was impressed with Saru's captaincy in that moment. He really stepped up to the plate, another quotable moment. And he says, let's get to work, people. So they get to work doing that. On Karen, Lorca has managed to get the rest of the surviving crew to swear fealty to him. And he's like, that's great. I mean, he's like kind of just, he's like a rooster, roosting. I don't know what you call it. He's like cock of the walk. He's in the throne room and he's like, yeah, I'm the baddest.
Peacocking?
He's peacocking. Well, not quite peacocking. Yes, but he's like, I actually wrote later.
Posturing.
He is posturing. He's
Posturing.
like, yeah, self-celebratory. When they can't find Michael earlier, he says like, oh, she'll come. Because he's still got like a thing for him and evil Michael had like a weird relationship that is kind of gross. And then he thinks that this Michael could maybe be swayed by that. He's obviously still got sort of romantic feelings for this, the prime Michael. But then Michael shows up with the Emperor and she offers the Emperor to be executed. And she says, listen, I'll stay here with you. I will allow you to use my mind, but not my body, if you let my crew go free. If you do not attack the crew of Discovery and let them go home, which Lorca agrees to. He is, it's his weakness is he is obsessed with Michael Burnham, evil or not evil. And so he agrees to that. And then Tilly, meanwhile, on Disco has this brilliant idea. She's like, listen, we have to use all the spores, but if we ride the mycelial shockwave, this is when it gets very jargony, very Star Trek jargon, star jargon.
Stargan.
If we ride the mycelial shockwave from the thank you for that portmanteau, from the mycelial explosion, we can ride it, and then that will power the spore drive, and you just have to be ready, and when it gets to a crest, we can go. But then Stamets is like, yes, that could work, except the spore drive explosion will be so big, and our shields can't even face that. But if we go to warp, maybe the warp bubble will protect us from the mycelial shockwave, and if we use that, so we'll have to use the spore drive and the warp drive in conjunction, and then that will protect us. We need to establish warp and ride on the very crest of the shockwave, and then we can get home. But then she's like, but there'll be a million branching different versions of the mycelial network happening all at once. It'll be basically impossible. And he goes, yeah, it'll be impossible, but I'll do what I gotta do. So that was like a cool, I mean, I made it sound more dramatic than it was, but it was just two nerds
when you speed it up,
talking.
it's that dramatic.
Yeah, well, listen, I like it when the nerds get nerdy. And so they set up that idea. Discovery gets a ping from the Karen. They say it's safe to drop out of warp. They get a message from Lorca. Lorca talks to Saru. He says, hey, I always respected you guys. He says, Michael's going to stay with me, but that's why you all get to live. Saru says, I want to see Michael for proof of that. And Michael shows up in the background and she says to him, I'm where I need to be. This is my place. And Saru says, that is all I needed to hear. And then Michael and Georgiou snap into action. And they start just kicking butt just in the throne room. It's like 2 against 40. But they're like, each takes a side. And there's just like this Aristeia.
Such a good fight
it's so
scene.
Good. It's so great.
So good.
I actually wrote down that the director of this episode is Olatunde Osunami, who is also an executive producer. And they direct a few of the episodes. And every time they're directing, I get excited. But this fight scene was incredible. It was like kind of insane and fast paced. So much action for Star Trek, but it also was like had all these character beats in it that also were illuminating. Like at a certain point, all the sort of like henchmen are all kind of occupied or shot or whatever because they're no big deal. And then it's Georgiou and Lorca on one side, and it's Landry and Burnham on the other side, and they're both fighting. And then Georgiou gets the best of Lorca for a little bit, and then Landry kind of gets the best of Michael. But then Lorca, who's obviously still in love with Michael, like picks up a sword and instead of going after Georgiou, goes for Landry. And I wrote, Lorca kills Landry because he like sliced her across the kidneys or something. She like blood comes out, she falls to the ground. Then Michael goes to fighting someone else, and Georgiou and Lorca start fighting by the throne, and there's a whole beautiful scene and everything. And then it seems like Georgiou gets knocked out, and then Michael takes over the fight with Lorca, and they fight, blah, 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 blah. And then she manages to fight Lorca, and she draws her phaser. And so she's got her phaser pointed at Lorca, and she goes, we would have helped you if you had just asked. But she says, that's because that's what the Federation is about, this experiment that you denigrate. And that's why I'm going to spare your life. And the Emperor says, but I'm not going to. And then she stabs a sword into him from behind. Comes out. And then he staggers towards Michael. He's like, we could have. And then he falls off the dais, down the stairs, and into the trapdoor, falling to his disintegrating death in the thing. It's weird because he doesn't they made like a screaming sound, like, but he's not screaming. He just kind of
also get shot as well, because then he sort of disintegrated on his way down.
No, I thought the disintegration was because of the mycelial, power of the reactor. No, because she didn't shoot him. She stabbed him.
No, I know she stabbed him, and then I thought she kicked him down and then shot him on the way out too.
Wow.
Maybe I got mixed up.
That also would be totally within character for Emperor Georgiou. So stab, kick, and as you're falling towards a tiny sun to also shoot you. So anyway, Lorca dead. And Michael pulls down the shield, and the Discovery hears that, and so they decide to fire their spore torpedoes. Hey, we both made portmanteaus in this episode.
Words.
Yeah, sporpedos. And in the interim, Georgiou, they're trying to get Michael out with the transporter, but it's hard to get her out because of the shielding. And so Georgiou gives her the pattern enhancer or whatever that she has on her wrist. And she says, I will buy you time. And Michael's like, why would you do that? And she says, hey, I am a defeated emperor. They have seen my neck. I have no future now. And she says, go live. And so she goes, and the rest of Lorca's men break the doors down into the throne room, and Georgiou's just there, just pegging them off. And Michael's like, I'm ready for transport. And as she's lighting up with transport, she changes her mind and she runs toward Georgiou, and she does the Laurel thing. She wraps her arms around Georgiou, and they both transport out of there onto the Discovery, and they're looking at each other. And Georgiou says something like, what have you done to me? Or something cool like that. And then kablooey, spore explosion. And the Discovery goes to warp, and they ride the shockwave, and Stamets is seeing all the beautiful directions, and he can't figure it out. And they go to black alert, and the Landry's, before that happens, Landry wound up still being alive and tried to shoot Discovery, but it didn't work because they blew them to sky high. And he's like, I can't figure it out. It seems like Stamets, and the ship's taking all this damage, and things are flying, and sparks are dropping. And then he hears the voice of Hugh, and Hugh says, follow the music, find the clearing in the forest. And then Stamets goes, the clearing in the forest. Thank you, Hugh. And then shaboom, they are back in the Prime Universe. Oh. Now listen, once they get back to the Prime Universe, you'd think all would be well and good. But alas, they find out.
You're putting your shirt on.
Yeah, because we're back in the Prime Universe. I don't wear this stupid T-shirt anymore. It can be.
What about your bow tie?
Oh, Steph, don't be ridiculous. I have a bow tie right here.
Of course.
Every shirt I have has a bow tie in the breast pocket. So they get back and they find out that yes, they're back in the Prime Universe, but 9 months has passed, and as they try to contact Starfleet, they find out that Starfleet has essentially lost the war. The Klingons have won. They own basically all the territory. And dun, dun, dun. Oh, do you want to dun, dun, dun?
Sure.
Starfleet has lost the war. The Klingons have won. And that's where we end episode 13.
Crazy.
It's crazy. It's so crazy. Okay.
Papers flying.
Papers are flying. Okay. I'm going to take a quick break. Personally, while I drink some water, set up things.
And put your bow tie on.
Put my bow tie on. I can talk and put the bow tie on. In fact, it's a parlor trick I do to impress the ladies. Okay. So no one is impressed. Oh, see, sirens. Perfect time for me to do this.
There you are. Yeah.
Okay.
We'll edit.
Oh man, it's really good to be back. It's good to be back in a shirt.
I had no idea how much pain you were in.
You know, the mirror universe is it's a hard life for all of us. It's difficult. So we begin episode 14. It is called The War Within, The War Without. And it truly is war on every level.
The War Within, did I get that wrong?
No, The War Without, The War Within. Excuse me. Did I say it backwards?
Yes.
I might have done so, because I think though The War Without is like sort of the front and center, the big overarching thing, it's all these tiny wars within each character that are that really tie this episode together. And because like no one is not conflicted. Yeah, Discovery gets back, Saru shows up and he's trying to say hello to Michael, and he sees Michael is there with Georgiou, and he's like, what? And Georgiou is all like, get out of my face, slave, because in the Terran universe, the Kelpians are slaves. Not only are they slaves, they're food. She says, like, we were just dining on the entrails of one of this creature's brothers yesterday, and now you want me to be quiet? And it was insane. It was like such an awkward moment. It starts the episode off so intense and weird. Whew, man.
Yeah.
So
super awkward.
Yeah. Saru's in charge of the ship. He's the captain at this point. So Saru orders her to be emergency transported to quarters and then detained there, and then orders everyone in the room, including the transporter engineer, that the existence of Georgiou in the Prime universe is classified. And that the penalty for that is court-martial. So they have to keep it a secret. Meanwhile, we see that the Discovery is being repaired because the trip through the mycelial network on the like crazy wave front basically destroyed the ship. The ship's on auxiliary power, so they can't do warp. They obviously can't do spore drive because they don't have any spores left because they used it all in the explosion. And Saru tries to get Michael to talk to Tyler, who has now finally come awake after his weird laser finger operation that took the mind of Vogue out of his head or whatever. And Michael's not ready to talk to Tyler yet because, remember, Tyler snapped while he was on the Karen and tried to kill her. So she's like, if it's an order, I'll talk to him, but if it's not an order, I won't. Saru says it's not an order. She's like, great, then I'm not going to do this. But Saru goes to talk to Tyler, and he basically is like, is Vogue still in there? Yeah. That also, my street is ridiculous. It's not like I live on like a highway or something. It's a tiny, tiny street. But people like to go crazy on it. So Tyler is basically like, I still have the memories of Vogue. I can access them, but it's like watching someone else's life. There's no control there. There's like a gap, but I still feel connected to him. And even the doctor who treated Tyler is like, the Vogue is no longer in there, and his physiology is human, but he's not really only human, and he's not really only Klingon. And Tyler explains that the Mokai, the Klingon house from which L'Rell is from, that performed the Cho'a, what is the species reassignment protocol? Yeah, I learned some Klingon for this bad boy. And basically had to like open up Vogue, take him apart, like cut his heart into pieces, like sand down his fingers, like turn him into a human, like all these bone breaking things, and also mix that with the DNA neural memories of Tyler. It's confusing, and we don't really know how it works. Still not
clear on the science.
Don't think about it too hard. It happened. And so he's like, listen, I can explain whatever you want. And Saru's like, will you be forthright with us and explain to us everything? And Tyler's like, of course. You know, he says, like, is Michael all right? And Saru says she's alive, but detained. And he says, it's great. And he says he feels bad about killing Dr. Culber. And Saru says, I don't think that was you. That was Vogue. And Tyler's like, I should be in the brig. And Saru says, I will not take your freedom away. But he does give him like a monitor bracelet and says, as long as you're forthright with us and tell us all about this Klingon species reassignment protocol to like infiltrate Starfleet, you can remain on the ship and you have your freedom of movement about the ship, except for certain classified areas. When Saru gets back to I took a screenshot of this, but I don't have no way to share it. But there was a cool thing on the wall behind Tyler as Saru leaves, and it showed the physiology of a human on one side and a Klingon on the other. and how they're similar and how they're different. Anyway, it was a cool moment.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah, that's right. Well, watching
Good for you.
watching an episode 3 times will give you
on slow-mo.
new insight into what's going on in the background. There's a vessel approaching as Saru gets back to the bridge, and it has a Federation codes, and so they go like, okay, hail that ship. We can finally talk to someone from the Federation, because they see some vessels far away, but mostly it's Klingon space. But as they get closer to the vessel, they realize the shields are up and the phasers are targeting them. And then as they try to figure out, put their shields up, they're boarded by it's like an Andorian and maybe 2 humans, I think, that board them, and they are pointing phasers at them, and they say, nobody move, don't do anything. And then they say it's clear, and then Admiral Katrina Cornwell and Sarek transport in, and Cornwell orders Sarek to do a mind meld with Saru, who's the acting captain, and so Sarek is able to discover all the things that Discovery has been through, and he also realizes that Lorca is dead because they are searching for Lorca. And then we go to the credits. So the last one didn't have a cold open, and this one had a cold open that was like a billion things happened before the credits even started. When we come back from the credits, Katrina uses one of the Terran lasers to destroy a bowl of fortune cookies, which I just thought was super funny.
The fortune cookies that sat on Lorca's desk.
Yes. She's like, she's so mad that she shoots a bowl of fortune cookies.
Pew.
How Starfleet. And they basically describe the whole situation with Lorca and the switching over and how Discovery has been. And Katrina Cornwell explains how the Discovery was deemed destroyed 9 months ago, and they saw the debris. Obviously, that was the debris of the Discovery from the other universe, and that the war has been a disaster since then. But now that the disco is back, they're able to share the cloak breaking technology, which was the whole thing that they had that they weren't able to share when Lorca sent them over to the Terran universe. However, it may be too late because the Klingons, they have no real leadership, so they've divided themselves between the internecine war between the 24 houses. Internecine war, interwar. Anyway, they divided themselves between the 24 houses, and they're fighting between themselves, but also using the Federation as fodder. Whoever can get the most kills and the most, valuables and do the most pillaging can basically assert themselves as the strongest. And so they're 1/3 of the Starfleet's fleet has been destroyed. Several outposts have been destroyed. And the Klingons are attacking indiscriminately. No real war plan, just attack. And so they were we got to jump to Starbase 1. It's our last real bastion of Starfleet. And we're going to go there. And everything about this mirror universe is going to be classified, and we're going to figure out what we do after that. But they can't jump because no spores. And so they have to do it at warp, which is dangerous, but they decided they have to do it. In the interim, Michael takes Cornwell and Sarek to see Georgiou, Evil Georgiou, who's in a nice little living room area. And they talk to her, and Georgiou wants to be sent home, but Michael wants Georgiou to be given asylum because she thinks she's a prisoner. And Cornwell's like, we don't even know if we can send you back to your universe. So you're going to be our guest. And be our guest, which is basically sort of prisoner, sort of guest. And Georgiou's like, am I a prisoner? And Cornwell's like, you're a guest, so make yourself comfortable. And they bounce. It's just in the hallway, Tyler is walking and kind of his hangdog look now that he's sort of an outcast, and he runs into Stamets coming out of the elevator. Reminder, Tyler, once he was activated as Voke, killed Stamets' partner. He just snapped Hugh Culber's neck. And so it's an awkward moment where Tyler's just like, I'm sorry. And Samus is like, yeah, just eat you up at night. Does it make you feel like a terrible person? Do you realize you killed someone I loved? And Tyler's like, yeah. And he's brought to tears. And then Samus says, good. And maybe there's some human left in you anyway. And then he just walks away. So, got off about as easy as you can after you've killed somebody's significant other, even if you were a Manchurian candidate.
Yeah, I think fair play to Stamets for just walking away, but there was a part of me that just thought he would want to absolutely kill him.
Well, yeah, but listen, practically speaking, this is Stamets. He's not going to kill him in cold blood, you know. And I don't think
just punch him in the face. Maybe.
You think Stamets he's not a Captain Kirk type. He's not an old pow biff boom. You know, he's upset. Yeah. And if he has machinations for revenge, I think they would run deeper and longer. But I think Stamets, of all people, probably knows what it's like to have this sort of complete loss of mental faculties and to be completely disoriented and unaware. I mean, Stamets himself in the same episode. Why am I arguing this with you? Why am I Kapla cornering you? I can't help myself. Yep.
Is it Kapla corner or Kapla tangent?
It's, yeah. Well, sometimes you think you're walking straight and then boom, you take a Kapla tangent and you wind up in a Kapla dead end. Kapla! It's all that Klingon I had to learn for the first part of the episode. Okay, so
oh dear.
I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, you know, argue. I made my point. So I'm glad Stamets didn't hit him, but I did think Stamets would have been certainly more like verbally cutting, but he wasn't as cut. I think there's a sense Stamets wants to forgive, and also there's like an extra worldly sense to Stamets because he has spoken to Hugh in the network, even though Hugh was dead. So I don't know how much Stamets truly is grieving and how much Stamets is just kind of putting everything about that aside existentially while they work on like keeping the Federation alive. But it was awkward. And when it happens, every time, and now I've seen this episode maybe 5 times in lifetime and probably 3 times in preparation for this episode, every time Stamets walks out of that door and Tyler's walking down the hallway, I go, because I almost can't watch it. It's so mortifying. Anyway, Tyler goes into the mess hall, and now he's like Michael the first day she came on the Discovery. When he walks into the mess hall, everyone's quiet, and they're all staring at him, and they're like, and he gets his food, and he sits down at a table by himself, and he's kind of like, ugh. And then our superhero, the true superhero of Star Trek Discovery. You can play the music.
Tilly, don't be silly. Tilly, it's your time.
The true superhero of Star Trek Discovery is Sylvia Tilly. And she she's great. I mean, she goes over and she's like, excuses herself from her conversation, sits down with Tyler. And Tyler says, like, you sure you want to do this? She says, of course. And he says, I'm fine. And she says, how could that even possibly be? And he's like, fair enough. She's like, we're going to sit here and we're going to eat and we don't need to converse, or we can converse. But Tilly sets an example. And then suddenly everyone wants to meet, wants to meet Tyler. So they all gather around and they're all asking him how he's been, so on and so forth. And that's what happens. When we get back to the bridge, Discovery jumps to where Starbase 1 should be. It's not in good shape. It is covered in...
How did they jump, by the way? Because I thought when they were having their
they didn't jump.
Meeting...
They warped.
They warped.
So when they come out of warp, where Starbase 1 should be, it has a Klingon house insignia, and of course I didn't write down the specific house, so I'm happy to stand corrected. When they come out, they scan for life signs. There are a bunch of Klingon life signs, but no human life signs. And
Katrina Cornwell freaks out.
She freaks out. Like, I mean, she's like, there were 80,000 souls on that ship, and they're all gone.
Yep.
And there were 3 ships, and she like just freezes. And it's Saru, where they're being scanned, and I think the phases, weapons are being powered up. Saru orders like, we got to get out of, go to warp as soon as possible, Captain. They go to warp.
Detmer.
Yeah, Detmer, go to warp.
Get us out of here.
And Cornwell is still sort of frozen. She sits back down, and then Saru comes over and says, we're awaiting your further captains, and she gives the
what?
We're awaiting your further captains. What did I just say? We're awaiting further orders, Captain. And she gives the boilerplate response, maintain course and speed. And then she leaves. She goes to the brig to talk to L'Rell. And L'Rell and Cornwall, essentially, see what happens? L'Rell and Cornwell have it out.
You got it.
I don't really. And Cornwell sort of like is trying to give her sort of an olive branch, or is maybe fed up. It's hard to tell, but essentially is like, your people have run amok. They're not unified. They're not, fighting all together for Klingon honor. They're just killing us indiscriminately, civilians and hospitals and not non-combatants and so on and so forth. L'Rell does pay Cornwell one compliment. She does say, Takuma taught us that all humans were without courage. About this, he was wrong. And Cornwell basically says, listen, what do you want from us? They're not even giving us terms. How can we end this war? And L'Rell says, the war will never end. She says, quote, conquer us or we will never relent. To which Cornwell says, thank you. I guess at that point, it seems like she realizes it's a war. There's no Starfleet way out of it. There will be no discussion, no discussion of terms, no surrender. So in that time, Michael goes to see Georgiou because she knows about the thing, the Starbase 1 being destroyed, and she asks Georgiou how in her universe she defeated the Klingons. And Georgiou sort of gives her some skinny on the Klingon homeworld of Kronos. So Michael then relates that to the Cornwell and Sarek, and Cornwell then uses that information to set up a plan. Basically, they come up with this plan to use the spore drive to go to Kronos, but not to go to the atmosphere of Kronos where they would be destroyed instantly by the orbital.
You dance almost as well as I do, you know.
Well,
I had more faith in you.
I've been practicing a lot. So they decide to jump not into the atmosphere of Kronos, but into the volcanic upper crust of Kronos. Apparently there are huge caverns where there used to be volcanoes when the planet was being formed, and they think they can jump directly into one of those caverns because the mycelial network will allow them to distinguish between open spaces and solid spaces, and then they can release a drone, and the drone will scan for tactical targets, and then they can launch an all-out assault of the Federation on Kronos, forcing the Klingon Empire, the Klingon houses there, not an empire at this point yet, to retreat back to Kronos and thus sort of end hostilities and force them to the table for negotiations. And there's some discussion back and forth between the higher ups of the Starfleet, like, can we do this? Shouldn't we go protect Earth? And, Sarek at one point really points out that, if anything has been evidenced in this war so far, it's that the methods that Starfleet uses for war are not going to be effective against the Klingon Empire. And so they've got to do something different. And so that's why they decided to do this. And, the question remains, how will they get more spores to run the spore drive? And Stamets cryptically says, set a course for the Veda system and get ready for a show. And essentially what he plans to do is he takes his first sample of spores, and they're going to break it apart, and they're going to use it. They're going to shove it into the earth of this dead planet and create a big spore farm, essentially. So he and Tilly work on building that. And as the ship is headed toward the Veda system and they're working on building that, Sarek and Sarek and Georgiou have a discussion. And she basically says that she can assure the Federation will be victorious over the Klingons in return for a favor from the Federation. And what is that favor? It is simply freedom. In the next scene, we just see Sarek and Michael walking down the hall, and Sarek says, hey, I got to split. I got to do this stuff back on Vulcan or whatever. And, hey, listen, I heard about the thing with Tyler, and, it's pretty rough, and it's kind of ironic because you hate Klingons so much, and your parents were killed by Klingons, but you then fell in love with them. And then he also says, there is also grace, for what greater source of peace exists than our ability to love our enemy? And then they have like a slightly awkward goodbye where Sarek like stiffly puts his arm on her shoulder. But he does say something very telling, and I felt maybe even portentous, dare I say it. He says, "There is no telling what one may do, what one of us may do, when the heart is..." Whoa, I just screwed the whole thing up. Well, it's hard to get this Klingon stuff right, this Vulcan stuff right. So Sarek says, "There is no telling what one of us may do where the heart is concerned." And this is after he's been talking about Amanda, and he's sort of referring to Michael. Maybe he's talking about Michael's relationship with Tyler. Maybe he's talking about his relationship with Michael. Maybe he's talking about various other love affairs in the war. But now remember, this is crazy. These things that have happened, these wars within are like, you've got Michael and Tyler. You've got Laurel and Vogue / Tyler. You've got Cornwell and Lorca. Her Lorca's gone, but part of her dismay is that her Lorca, who's like a friend and lover, is dead, and she was betrayed by this other one. You've got Sarek and his relationship with Michael. It's bananas. Oh yeah, sure. Let's talk about Hugh and Stamets. Anyway, everyone has got these sort of internal things going on, and it's very complicated. But the last thing that Sarek says to Michael is, "Do not regret loving someone." And then he departs. Yeah, that's right.
I love that line. That would have been my quotable moment.
Quotable moments.
I thought he might have followed up with, "You would regret not loving them," or something like that. But I think it was enough.
It was perfectly Vulcan.
What he said. Yeah.
"Do not regret loving someone, Michael." And then just leaves. Michael goes to talk to Tilly after that, and she tries to be all business. She's like, "Hey, we got a bing bong bang spores, yada 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 Veda system." And Tilly's like, "Okay, I'm on it." And then she's like, walks away and she goes, "Hey, I just talked." And then she like kind of opens up. She's like, "I just talked to Sarek, and we said goodbye, and I felt like it was sort of the last time." It's like, "You don't think it's going to be the last time, do you?" And Tilly's like, "When I joined Starfleet, I didn't think it would be like this." And Michael says, I kind of did. And Tilly says, like, what I've realized from being in the Terran system is that what we do is when we do good things, we do them in spite of how hard it is to do good things. And that is how we rise above our lesser demons. And she tells Michael, "You need to go talk to Tyler. He needs you." And she says, "I don't know if I could talk to him." And she says, like, "Well, if you're feeling like there are final goodbyes afoot, maybe you need to go, even if the last thing you say is goodbye, you need to go say it." And that's, again, Tilly just killing the game. What did you, EQ? She's got the big EQ, top level EQ. She's going to be...
For someone who is incredibly socially awkward, she does have that really good EQ.
She's socially awkward. I think she's plumbed the depths of awkwardness, and therefore nothing gets past her in terms of like when an awkward thing is happening. She's just very keyed into it somehow.
I think she's super good with telling other people how to interact with each other. But when it comes to her own interactions, she's ridiculously dorky, nerdy, cute. All of that. But she's spot on with other people.
She's like 17 or something, right? She's not that young, I don't think, but she's very young.
How old is she meant to be?
I know that in the first episode, we know she fast-tracked through Starfleet, and she's there as like a sort of cadet, but she was so brilliant. That's why she's working with Stamets on engineering stuff. But you can sure Google it to find out.
Oh, yeah.
In the meantime, while that's being Googled, Discovery gets to the Veda system, and they eject the mycelia torpedo, like spore seed rockets into the Earth of the Moon, and the root structures start to form, and then they blast those root structures with EM darts, which I assume are electromagnetic pulses, and that causes the spores to grow and grow and grow and grow, sporing at 4%, and then 8%, then 12%, then 19%, then 22%, then 27%, then 32%. And that's where I stopped being able to hear what the computer was saying. But essentially, a bunch of spores are being made. So we got spores, and maybe we can go through with this crazy, crazy, crazy plan to go into the bottom of a dormant volcano and attack Kronos that way. Michael goes to see Tyler. They have another very hard conversation. This one, I almost can't watch. at this, but I did. And, she sort of like asks him, like, is Tyler a real person? Did he really love me? Or was that all just sort of like a weird construct? And she's mad, not just because Tyler, as a Manchurian candidate, Vogue tried to kill her, but also because Tyler had told her when things got too hard that he would come to her and be honest, and he didn't. He failed to do that. And so for that reason, she feels like she can't put that trespass behind her. And Tyler counters with like the reason that he's not a sleeper agent, the reason that he's not Volk parading around and getting information and actively creating havoc within Starfleet and giving all the secrets to the Klingon Empire is because Tyler is real and because Tyler is in love with Michael and that's what sort of saved them from him from really going over to the other side. And Michael, they have like a momentary look of like understanding, but then Michael explains like feels like she's been in a similar situation when she started this war at the Battle of the Binary Stars. And she says the work to claw yourself back to your humanity is hard work and it takes a long time and it's solitary work. And she says to him, it's not easy letting you go. But then she does. And in the final scene, Cornwell is talking to Sarek and they say, we got the spores. And so I think it's time for the plan to go forth. And Sarek says the Federation Council is down with it. And Cornwell goes onto the bridge and she addresses the ship and says, we're going to Kronos. And I want to introduce you to the person that's going to lead you to Kronos. Our person who's got all the information. Introducing Captain Philippa Georgiou. Say what?
I was ready for that one.
I mean, it was a dun-dun-dun moment.
It was.
Yeah, Georgiou walks out and I guess they have an explanation that she like was saved. That it's not Terran Georgiou, it's Georgiou, real Georgiou, who was presumed dead, but is actually alive. And she's in a Starfleet uniform and she's the captain and she sits down in the captain's chair. And that is the end of the episode. Everything is back where it was, but not in the right place. Pew.
Pew. Minds are blown.
Holy Moroli. And that
Holy
was episode
smokes.
13 and 14. Oh, wait, sorry, hold on. Steph demands this happens. Episodes 13 and 14.
The image was brilliant.
Episode 13 and 14 of season 1 of Star Trek Discovery. I don't know that I have any real stats. We did go to Black Alert twice. That was the only real stat that we had. There were no set phasers moments.
We don't get a lot of stats. We haven't had many.
Well, because we spent so much time. Well, now it's like everything's war. It's not your usual, like, go to the plant and do stuff right now. It's just so insane. It's been this ramp for the last 6 episodes. I do think, before we get into quotable moments, that it's time to say goodbye to a few characters.
I couldn't agree more.
First and foremost, Captain Lorca. Captain Gabriel Lorca, supposedly of Texas. You loved eating Kelpians. You loved fortune cookies. And also, you loved Michael Burnham. You were an evil, evil man. And completely self-absorbed. And in many ways, a complete psychopath. But you're dead. It was a good ride. And you had faith of the heart. I love that you hold that salute for so long. That is ridiculous.
Long way up, short way down.
Yeah.
That's how we were taught at school.
Oh, wow. Oh, you went to saluting school?
Yes, I did. I was in the Combined Cadet Force, actually.
The Combined Cadet Force.
I was a non-commissioned officer.
Oh, NCO, were you?
I was an NCO.
That's excellent. Do you have a rank?
I did. What on earth was it? I'll come back to you. I forgot. I do forget what it was.
Very exciting stuff. I didn't know I was was doing a podcast with somebody who holds actual rank.
Oh, what was it? It wasn't an exciting one.
I just want to point out also that I appreciate that this week you were able to get your comm badge onto your shirt. This is the first time, correct?
No, I've had it on before.
I think the last week, maybe last weekend I missed it, but I thought it was but it was like this is it. This looks real.
Yeah. Thanks. Well I think it's all about the placement.
It's about the placement and how casual you were with it. Because, I noticed like 15 minutes in and I was like, damn, she really did it.
Yeah.
Didn't even say anything about it.
No, normally I'm like, look at my comm badge.
Yeah. Oh, like this comm badge right here. This one I have.
Yeah,
okay.
This one.
So shall we get Miss Potts on the phone?
Quotable moments.
Okay. Do you have any quotable moments? I know I stole a few and just in the rundown.
I think my favorite was the Sarek quote, and it was what was it?
I wish I could help you, but I've literally
Love
thrown my papers onto the ground.
Something about that.
What greater something of peace is there that we love our enemy? Blah, blah, blah.
It is correct. What greater peace exists than our ability to love our enemy?
What greater, remember how I screwed it up when I tried to say it? So I have a few quotes. One I think is killer because it compensates the whole thing. But I thought it would be nice to quote Saru because he had such a great moment in episode 13 when he inspires the crew. He says, "It is well known that my species has the ability to sense the coming of death. I do not sense it today. I may not have all the answers. However, I do know that I am surrounded by a team I trust, the finest a captain could ever hope to command. Lorca abused our idealism, and make no mistake, Discovery is no longer Lorca's. She is ours, and today will be her maiden voyage," as they were sailing into sudden death. And from episode 14, I chose Tilly's comments to Michael when Michael's like, hey, what's going on? Yeah, I'm good. And then she's like, actually, I'm really screwed up. She says, "When we were in the Terran universe, I was reminded how much a person is shaped by their environment. And I think the only way that we can stop ourselves from becoming them is to understand the darkness within us and fight it." I think that's just a great summation of episode 14 altogether. And in reference to her talking to Tyler, she says, what we do now, the way we treat him, that is what he will become.
Yes.
And that
was a good Tilly moment, that one.
That is germane to all lives everywhere. Think about that.
That is
the next
true.
time you're doing anything. How we treat them now is what they will become. I believe the children are future. No? Okay. Let's move on.
Let's wrap it up.
Oh boy. Okay.
Next time on Set Phasers.
Next time on Set Phasers, we're going to dig into the final episode of season 1 of Star Trek Discovery. I don't know how they're going to wrap all this up because everything has gone to shambles. It is called Will You Take My Hand? And honestly, you're going to need someone to hold on to get through this last episode. And we're going to do a very special episode of Set Phasers at some point during this holiday weekend because we have a million episodes to get through and we only have like 5 or 6 weeks until, no, less. We have 5 weeks, maybe 5 weeks until season 3 comes out. Season 3!
And then we'll be doing them live.
And then we'll be doing
sort
them
of live,
Yeah, the day after,
the day after.
Yeah, and then...
Totally after Trek show-ness.
Listen, that was the dream when we first put this together. So it's so exciting that, that we really didn't think we were going to be doing this. We thought we were going to have a long break, but we aren't. Instead, we're cramming them in.
Coming to fruition.
Tune in for that whenever that happens. Or anyway, just listen. It's great. Thank you for Sunday, Monday, and it'll be out next week at some point. We want to thank you for joining us.
Probably
and if
Sunday
you
or
enjoyed the
Monday
program,
at some
you
point
can
over the
catch us
weekend.
every Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern on Facebook Live or as a podcast every Monday, wherever podcasts come from. What? We did? You buried the lead.
We also just made it onto iHeartRadio this week, by the way.
No, it's all right. I like to be excited. It's rather exciting. It's rather.
Yes. Oh, sorry. I forgot to mention that. It's rather exciting. It's rather exciting. So we are on Facebook, Instagram at Set Phasers Podcast. Please feel free to follow us along, join in the conversation of all things Trek, and please like Facebook, my memes and my posts, because I work
If you
so
want
hard.
to support us in our continuing mission to discover what Discovery has in store for us, we'd only be delighted. You can patronize us, and we can take it by going to patreon.com/setphasers. And I am Aki Burmese, and this has been Set Phasers, a highly illogical
Until next time,
Star Trek podcast.
I'm Steph Mans. Computer. End program.